So January is over. Month one is under our belts. The Monday of all months of the year is now over. And if you're feeling like you had the most January to ever January, this podcast episode is for you. I am so happy that you're here. And you know what? There is a large range and a spectrum that you might be feeling, and you might have a little bit of a guilt. You might be feeling a little bit of exhaustion. You might be feeling a little bit of relief that January is over. And that is what this episode is all about. I'm going to be chatting with you today. It's me and you, and we're going to be looking at how our January went. I am going to be sharing some cool new findings that I recently learned, some research about how we're setting goals and how we're making resolutions. And I'm also going to share some insights about how my January went. Also kind of just sharing some different tools and some strategies, giving you some questions that you can ask yourself now that we've got January done and we're moving into the rest of the year. So I was laughing. I was on Instagram, scrolling as we do, and I saw a meme that said, January is a test run. We go for real in February, unless February is also bad, in which case it is a rehearsal for March. And that's how I want you to feel. We're sort of testing the waters here, regardless of how your January went. Let's dive into a new month with a new attitude, a new perspective. And I wanted to read a quote to you that really spoke to me. And it says, no matter what January looked like, you are allowed to continue the work of redefining success. You are allowed to explore what it means to find a life worth living right here, even before everything else falls into place. And that is from one of my favorites, Morgan Harper Nichols. So with that being said, let's dive into this episode. Hey, I'm Andryanna, and this is the Juggle is Real podcast. As I share my ongoing journey from experiencing burnout to leading a more mindful and intentional life with better balance, I hope you feel seen, that you realize your worth, lighten your load, and prioritize your own needs. As we hear from leading experts and well-known faces in the wellness, entrepreneurship, education, and motherhood space, I hope you gain insights, proven practices, and learn actionable tools to help you enjoy the juggle of work, family, and everything in between with a little less stress and a lot more ease, joy, and fun. Most of all, I hope you find what you need to simplify, streamline, and supercharge your own journey of better balance and self-love. Are you with me? Let's get started. All right, we are here. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate you being part of this conversation that I'm having essentially by myself in this room that I'm in. I'm bundled. I've got my chunky knit sweater from Stitch and Stone, and I'm staying warm on this freezing cold winter day. And wherever you are, I hope that you are feeling good. And I hope this conversation serves you. So we're talking about, this question you might be asking yourself, like, okay, like now what? Maybe you set some goals and they worked really well. Maybe you set some goals and you haven't been working towards them. Sometimes we can feel a little bit of guilt or a little bit of shame when January is over because things didn't go as planned, or maybe the things that we have been doing aren't serving us. And so we're feeling a little stressed out. And so I want you to take a breath, roll your shoulders, move your neck, do what you got to do. And if you don't want to do that, by all means, it's all good. But we're here because I want to share some findings with you. I want to share some interesting things that I've been reading and listening to, and I want to kind of go through how my January went, and hopefully you can find some learnings within these experiences and these findings. And I want to pose some questions that you can ask yourself. So as you're navigating wherever you are, you can find that motivation internally and set yourself up to feel good and to put yourself in a position where you're ready to tackle what you want to lead that life that you really want to be leading. So wherever you are, I want you to just know right off the hop, like and you might, these are things that you've probably heard before, but just because January is over, regardless of where you fall in the spectrum, we're working with a marathon here, my friends. This is a marathon, it's not a sprint. We have, 1 month of the year under our belts. That is not going to make or break us, right? We are taking this 1 month at a time, one step at a time. Really, we can break this down in however small portions we need to, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But wherever you fall, now is not the time to give up. Okay. So if things didn't go as planned, we're good. If things are going well, you're tempted to maybe, stop and take a pause, you're good. Now is not the time to give up, because your dreams, your goals, your aspirations, all of it, it's all worthwhile, and we are going to make it there. Maybe you didn't make it there in January. Maybe you're well on your way, but it is all there for a reason, and you will succeed this year, regardless of where you fall. Okay, so let's just take it one step at a time as we dive into these findings and these insights, and as we have this conversation. So there's a few different schools of thought here, and I want to talk about different methods that can be used, and you can see where you fall in the spectrum, see what maybe hasn't been working or what has been working, and maybe make some shifts, maybe make some changes, and you can create a plan for yourself to set yourself up for success. As we move into February, and as we move into the rest of the year, maybe we can make some tweaks, maybe we can find some new learnings so that we can make the shifts that are required to continue on this journey, to be on this path to whatever it is that we're trying to achieve. So sometimes we can come out of the gate really strong, and January is this fresh new year, a new month, and we can come out really strong and have these really huge, big, audacious goals. And while I appreciate and certainly subscribe to having big goals and big dreams, sometimes when you are setting things that are a year out, 3 years out, 5 years out, well, these great lengths of time can sometimes give us a false sense of security. Like maybe that means procrastination because you feel like you have so much time, so that you can, put off tasks, or, it feels really far away. Sometimes it can also create that sort of sense of like doom and gloom because you are not where you want to be, and it feels so far that you don't even know where to begin, and so you don't even take that first step. And so as the first part of the information that I want to share today in this episode is really dedicated to having those small markers as a path towards the big goals. So I'm not saying to give up or not have big goals altogether. I'm saying that oftentimes we need to have smaller goals on the journey towards our big goals. And we've talked about this in the past, but sometimes it's great to just remember that if you're not where you want to be, having those small markers can really provide you with that additional willpower and motivation to succeed, which then will propel you on your destination to getting there. And this is why I like to make those small markers. Sometimes they're not even, you wouldn't even think that they're like connected. The small things that I'm challenging myself to do on a monthly basis, but it's all to build myself up to create this persona of who I am being, which is a match to what that bigger goal is. So I will talk about this just briefly. There are some other podcast episodes that I talk about, but I personally have found great success with the 1 month duration. And this is why we're talking about January being over, starting a new month. Perhaps you can create some small goals that you will strive to achieve within this 1 month period. Okay. And wherever you are, whenever you're listening, you can create, a 1 month goal setting session for yourself to sort of test the waters a little bit. It's a lot easier to create a shift or pivot or make a small change after 1 month if you learn that something is not fitting or wasn't serving you than it is to, try to aim for really large aspirations to only turn around after getting there and thinking, you know what, this wasn't even for me. Why was I doing this? This is not even something that I wanted. So testing the water, create some new habits, form some new mindset beliefs, some new paradigms for yourself. And within this 1 month period, then you have a little bit of wiggle room. Within these boundaries of the 1 month period, I want you to create a framework for yourself that's really going to serve you. And this brings us to the first question that I want you to be asking yourself right now. Now that we have January under our belts, however you're feeling right now with what your goal setting was at the beginning of the year, or those resolutions that you set at the start of January, I want you to ask yourself this question. Did the resolutions I made serve me? Were the goals that you set the right ones for you? Okay, so by this question that you're asking yourself, did the resolutions or goals or whatever you want to call it, did the resolutions I made serve me? And think about it. And what I'm talking about, what I mean is that did they help me in leading a more fulfilling, more intentional, happier life these past few weeks during the month of January? If you felt that those resolutions helped guide you, help create a more positive compass in your January, even if you didn't fully succeed, if you didn't quote unquote crush those resolutions in January, was it a strong direction that you felt was leading you in a good place? If the answer is yes, then it's likely worth continuing with, right? Even if you weren't 100% perfect, even if it didn't go exactly as you thought it would. If you felt that having those goals in place really served you from a good place, then it's probably a good idea to keep with it. If the answer is no, if it placed so much pressure on you, if you felt it near impossible to even begin, if you were paralyzed in even thinking about it, and it stopped you in your tracks, or maybe it caused you additional stresses in other areas of your life that caused a little bit of tension or some challenges, then maybe that resolution or that goal isn't right for you right now. And so we can remove it and we can lessen it or we can shift it. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. So for instance, if you in January resolved to sobriety for, a dry January, and you felt that it positively affected your choices, it helped you sleep better, feel more energetic and better focused. Even if you did, break that dry spell once or twice, it may be worth pursuing a dry February, or you can create some boundaries around your choices moving forward. So did that resolution, did that goal serve you in January? This is a great question to be asking yourself as we move into the rest of the year. What was it that helped you or that hindered you about that resolution that you set? And I'll let you sit with that for a minute, and feel free to pause now. You can write some notes about it. You can, just think to yourself. Maybe you can spend a few moments in a brief meditation, throw on some music, and ask yourself that question and just see what comes up for you. Now, as we move forward, I want you to think about the entire goal setting process and how we come about making these resolutions. And when you think back to your January, to whatever, choices you made, and, how things panned out compared to what you originally set for yourself, I want you to think about where you succeeded and or where you didn't do as well. And I'm not going to say failed, because there's always learnings to take, and there's always lessons to be learned. But what are those positives, and perhaps what were the negatives within the month of January, and how that goal setting process came to fruition? or didn't. And so I want to share some findings that were really insightful for me. I was listening to an interview with Katy Milkman, who is a Wharton professor of behavioral economics, and it was really cool. It was a really insightful interview where she talked about creating habits. And oftentimes when we're looking to resolve something or create goals or, achieve certain feats, it's all about the habits that we put into place. And so with this, her research showed that flexibility is better than rigidity in terms of building habits and in terms of creating consistency. So this is so, so cool, because sometimes we can create a plan and maybe you had a diet in mind at the beginning of January, or maybe you had some goals for moving your body, exercising, getting to the gym, what have you. And sometimes we can start and we can have this very rigid plan, a strict schedule that we want to follow. It might be waking up at 5 a.m. every day and getting to the gym and, doing that 7 days a week and being on a very strict and rigid plan and schedule. And for some of us, if we do not meet that, so for instance, if we sleep in one morning, then that's it. And we're done. And we didn't do what we set out to do. And the plan is now broken. And we are not going to go to the gym when we wake up or after work or later in the evening. If we didn't follow our schedule to a T, then we are completely abandoning it. And for others, we can create flexibility within structure. And sometimes that serves us better. And this is what I found really interesting. So her research showed that if your plan, if your goal, if whatever you're setting out to do is too rigid, it then becomes brittle and it makes it harder to achieve your goal. And so it's actually important, okay, to build in some variability, to build in some flexibility. Because as you know, the juggle is real, my friend. Life is not always consistent. So yes, you might have the best intentions to wake up at the crack of dawn and drive to the gym and do your workout. But maybe your kids woke up in the night. Maybe you didn't have a good sleep. Maybe there's a blizzard and you can't even get out of your driveway. Life is not always consistent. And so when you're very rigid with your plans, then they become brittle and sometimes they just completely snap off instead of being flexible with them, being more elastic with them. And so if things tend to break or stretch, then you can bounce back. Okay, so this is something that I just want to pause on and reflect on here for a minute, because if you are the type of person who is an all or nothing, it's black or white, and your plans, if they are not going according to what you set out, will totally just give up on them. I want you to know that it's okay to have some flexibility. And if you're already doing this, like, good on you, but now this just affirms or reaffirms that it is a good plan to have some flexibility. So another part of her findings, which was really, really funny and an interesting thing, she calls it the what the hell effect. And, this is kind of, a good way to remember it. But when we're talking about the what the hell effect from Katy Milkman's research, this actually comes from the research of her friend, who is her name is Marissa Sheriff, I believe. Sheriff. So her what the hell effect is based on research on the importance of having really tough goals, because the harder goals are best in terms of accomplishment. So this is another really cool thing that I wanted to share with you, because sometimes we think, okay, you know what? I wanted to get to the gym every morning work out for an hour. I wanted to get 31 days of gym under my belt, or, I, wanted to do, yoga for 30 days. And that was actually one of my goals. So we'll talk about that in a second. But I had this goal, and it's, can be challenging. And so you might snap off if you don't achieve that. But in terms of accomplishment, instead of saying, okay, you know what, it is impossible for me to work out every single day. Instead, I'm going to set my goal for working out 3 days a week, or working out 5 days a week. And, or I'm going to, perhaps if your goals were somehow related to, feeding your body, maybe cutting out certain foods, maybe following a meal plan or a diet plan, and things didn't, you were tempted and you had that slice of chocolate cake, you might be tempted to just completely throw that entire plan in the trash. Or you might be tempted to say, like, instead of eating this, healthy plan 7 days a week, I'm going to give myself 2 cheat days. So with the what the hell effect, when this comes into play, you aim high, but you might fail. So with this, what the idea is, instead of lessening your goal, okay, so as we move into February, if your January goals didn't pan out, instead of maybe lessening it, instead, her what the hell effect is to create what she's calling emergency reserves that allow yourself to build in flexibility when it's truly needed, versus having setting the bar lower for yourself. So for instance, instead of saying, 7 days a week was not attainable for me to exercise or to follow a meal plan, I'm going to say 5 days a week. What the research actually showed in this instance was that you are more likely to fail even more if you set the bar lower, versus having the full amount, 7 days a week, and allowing yourself, say, 2 emergency reserves. So it's so funny, because when this was tested against the smaller goal, which is essentially the same, right? Working out 5 days a week versus working out 7 days a week, having 2 emergency reserves. When it was tested against the smaller goal, the results were dramatically better. The outcomes were so much more in favor of setting your sights high and having emergency reserves versus having a lower goal. Those higher goals, those bigger goals, stretch you to achieve better outcomes, versus knowing that you have that cushion. Having emergency reserves that you'll only take if it's absolutely necessary allows you some flexibility within that structure, within that larger, bigger goal, versus having a lower goal. So this is so cool to me, because if you were feeling like, oh my goodness, my January didn't work out, I better have a lower goal, or I better not have a goal whatsoever, I want you to know that according to this research, you should be still setting your sights high, but incorporating some emergency reserves. So allow some flexibility within your structure. How are we feeling? How are we thinking about this? So within these parameters, I want to ask you another question. And actually, I want you to ask yourself another question. So as you're thinking back to your January, I want you to ask yourself whether you felt that it was a huge success. Maybe it was not as great as you wanted it to be. Maybe you're somewhere in the middle. I want you to ask yourself, what did I learn? What did I learn? And this is going to be a really important question moving forward, because wherever you fall within, how things went for you during the month of January, what are the learnings? Maybe the learnings can be that you felt that you built some really great habits, and having certain structures in place was really serving you, was really beneficial to you, and it's something that you want to move forward with. Maybe things didn't go as planned, and there are changes that can be made to help you succeed in the future. So, for instance, maybe things didn't go according to plan. Your 5 a.m. gym schedule didn't pan out because you continuously hit the snooze button, and you slept in multiple days a week and you just didn't get there. So maybe you need to create some changes in other areas of your life to allow yourself the structure to succeed within this goal, if that's something that's important to you. So for instance, going to bed earlier might mean that you put your phone in another room at a certain time to ensure it's not a distraction, to ensure that you're not just, doom scrolling at all hours of the night, and you're putting that phone away so that you can get the sleep you need to actually feel rested when that alarm goes off. And so you can, get to the gym or do whatever it is you need to do. So ask yourself, what did I learn? And perhaps some of these findings can provide you with additional insights that can help you take some of those learnings out of it. Maybe you're going to move forward with even bigger goals, even brighter sight set, and you're going to incorporate some flexibility within that. And so I want to share some of the goals that I set for myself in January, and how that sort of panned out for me. One of the goals that I had was to incorporate a dry January. I wanted to just see how things were going to go for me. I don't see myself as a huge drinker. It's not something that I do every single day, but I wanted to just, test the waters a little bit and see how things went. And I will say that it was mostly a success for me. And there were 2 days that I did have some wine, and I didn't beat myself up for that. And so as we look back to the findings from, Katy Milkman, the Wharton professor, the behavior of setting a firm goal of, 1 full month of not drinking, and then allowing some flexibility within it. One of the days was seeing one of my best friends whom I hadn't spent any time with, had not seen in person for over 2 years. We had a great visit. We caught up and we had a couple glasses of wine. That some flexibility within those parameters allowed me to drop any sort of guilt or feelings of failure and, completely abandoning that goal. And I was able to see it through and not just completely, let that goal go. Another goal that I had for myself, again, was to take the full month of January and complete a 30-day yoga journey. And for me, that was important to move my body and to get into the mind space and the framework of being consistent. And with that 30-day yoga journey, I completed 27 of the 30 days. And it bled into, I ended up completing the full 30 days within 34 days. So there were days that were missed, but I just continued and tacked them on. So again, we're looking to having a larger goal. So to do yoga every single day for 30 days, but having those emergency reserves when things didn't go as planned, or when you didn't have the capacity or the energy, or you just couldn't fit it in, having the compassion to say, okay, I'm going to take that emergency chit today and we'll start fresh tomorrow. Not completely abandoning it, not berating myself for missing a day, not just completely saying, well, that's it, I didn't do the full 30 days and therefore I was a failure. So taking the learnings from it, understanding what worked for me, if there were times that were better windows of opportunity that allowed me to better meet those needs of achieving those goals. And then also, what were the learnings for, when did I see myself, wanting to, go and grab a glass of wine? Are there things that I can do? Can I set myself up for success in the future if that's something that I want to be doing? So asking myself, did it serve me? In these both instances, the answer is yes, because it did allow me to set myself up for success and create habits that I think were really self-serving, that did provide that positive direction and that compass that allowed me to feel better, be happier, and give me some sense of purpose and accomplishment. So was it perfect? No, but am I feeling good about it? And as we move into this month, am I, looking to the goals that I set in January, and am I going to move forward into February? So, am I going to do a dry February? I haven't decided yet, but allowing myself some flexibility within structure is really going to benefit me moving forward. So for myself, I think I'm going to take these findings and set some new goals for myself for this month ahead. And I'm going to set them in a larger, more bold, and more purposeful way, knowing that I will have those emergency reserves to fall back on, but knowing that I want to succeed and I want to, move into this month with purpose. So the final question that I want you to ask yourself is, how do I want to move forward? Okay. How do I want to move forward? And after you've asked yourself, did those goals, did those resolutions, did they serve me? What did I learn? Now you can ask yourself, how do you want to move forward into this new month? What might serve you better? How can you take those learnings and apply them into this new month? And how can you perhaps continue with the goals, or make slight shifts, make some small changes, or create new goals for yourself, new resolutions, new structures that maybe will allow you to be successful as we move into this new month? So ask yourself these questions, take some time, write some notes in a journal, maybe chat to yourself in your voice notes on your phone, or perhaps play some, restorative music, some ambient music, and, lie down and have some thinking time to just pause, reflect, and then be able to reset as we head into this month. If you're thinking of looking at a small month-by-month structure that will help you as you work towards those large goals, I created a 30 days for me guide that has been really serving for myself. And it's been so helpful that I created a document out of it that is 100% free. It's a download that I would love for you to have. It's called 30 Days for Me, and it is a sort of a self-care guide that you can set small goals within a month period that's going to really serve you and help you build habits that will take you within your journey. So there's 5 pillars of well-being. They are to nurture, nourish, move, grow, and discard. All really helpful categories and pillars of overall well-being. And you can choose to set some small goals within these 5 areas that will hopefully take you through the month with some purpose, with some intention and some mindfulness, and set you onto those bigger goals and those big audacious dreams. So as we close out this episode, I want you to keep those 3 questions in your back pocket. Did it serve me? What did I learn? And how do I want to move forward? And if you think that someone else could find value in asking themselves these questions, in learning these insights and findings, can you do me a favor and share this episode with them really quickly? It would mean all the world to me if you could rate this episode, write me a quick review. And you know what? As we are moving forward in this year, the more people that can benefit from learning this, the better, right? We all want to be leading a more balanced, more intentional, more mindful life. And in sharing this, that is what you're doing. You are helping others do that, which in turn is only going to help you in the end. So I send you so much love. I can't wait to see you back for another episode. And until then, take good care. Bye for now.